Hey there, I'm Pete Townsend, and this is Money Never Sleeps. We look inside the minds of entrepreneurs and at the crossover of startups, enterprise, finance, technology, and life as we know it. First off, for all of you Owen Fitzgerald fans out there, he'll be back co-hosting with me next week. But for this week, we've got a special Money Talk segment recorded during the Finsight series virtual event that I moderated recently, hosted by Navirum and Salesforce. In this conversation, we've got an all-star cast with Rory Galvin from Navirum, Brian Claggett from Movin', Corey Habercorn from Salesforce, and Niall Toomey from Finergo. The main theme we covered is this: the demand for digital financial services goes far beyond the domain of neobanks. How do we become truly digital upstream of consumer banking, especially in institutional banking and wealth management? This stellar crew share a lot more insights and stories as well, all right here on Money Never Sleeps. Welcome, everybody, to the first edition of the Finsight series, Going Digital in Banking and Wealth Management, hosted by Navirum and Salesforce. I'm Pete Townsend. I'm going to be moderating this shindig this fine morning and or afternoon, wherever you may be today. I am the founding partner of Norio Ventures and an advisor to a number of fintech and digital asset businesses, mostly at the early stage level. And what we're going to do today is have this fine group of insightful individuals share their ideas with us on this one big key idea. The demand for digital financial services goes far beyond the domain of neobanks. How do we become truly digital in financial services upstream of consumer banking? And I've spoken with a number of folks about this recently, in that it's just not fair, right? That all of us have become digital animals, and that we are using apps every day, even more so in the last year. Our behavior has changed. Yet when we then go to our day jobs of working in financial services, where's all of our fintech, right? Is that so much of what we work on every day is built on tech stacks from a long time ago. But we're going to look at this today from the angle of what are some of the great things happening in banking and wealth management that are strong indicators of where all this is headed, how we are going digital, but how can we even accelerate that a bit more? So I'd like to intro the speakers first. I will let them intro themselves. Rory Galvin, would you like to go first?
Thank you, Pete. So Rory Galvin, I'm the founder and CEO of Navirum. We're a financial services consulting company, and we are a certified registered Salesforce implementation partner. We are based here in Montreal in Canada, but we operate across the United States, coast to coast in Canada. We recently started operating in Europe as well. We've been up and running now for just over 2 years. So delighted to just be sitting here with all of you guys just in this interesting conversation. I'm looking forward to contributing and learning something along the way as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Rory. Brian?
Yeah, I'm Brian Claggett. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of Movin'. Previously to that, I was a reformed banker turned fintech-er, I guess you'd call it. And I'm broadcasting analog, as you can tell, from Williamsburg, Virginia.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Niall Toomey.
Hey guys, Niall Toomey. So CTO of Finergo, which is an Irish fintech company. Yeah, it's funny you say upstream from consumer. So we take care of AML, anti-money laundering, KYC, regulatory compliance for corporate, institutional, commercial, business banking, as well as retail. But it's really our sweet spot is probably the more complex onboarding pieces and challenges around that. And just digitizing end to end, front to middle to back office is a big thing of what we're trying to do.
Very good. Thank you, Niall. And the bookends of the Ori, we started with Rory, and now we'll go with Corey Habercorn.
Hi, thank you. Corey Habercorn. I'm an industry advisor with Salesforce. I spent 16 plus years building custody platforms for registered investment advisors. So that's my background, the experience and angle I bring to Salesforce in the financial services realm, specifically in wealth and asset management.
Very good. Thank you. So with that, I'd like to get to our first question, and I'm going to direct this one to Brian. So the first question is on trust and trust in financial services. We are expecting customers to engage with us digitally as financial services providers. We need the customer to trust us as financial services providers in order for us to handle all of their data, to handle all of their information, handle their money, obviously, probably most importantly. And when I say customer, I mean individuals as well as institutions, all the way, up the ladder. But also, we as a financial services provider, we need to trust the customer, right? So there's a kind of bi-directional trust component there. Brian, what do you think are some of the contributing factors to this whole context of how customers trust institutions and institutions trust customers?
I'll answer the question by posing another question that I don't expect anyone to answer, but I wanted to think about right now. What the hell is trust, right? In today's age, what is trust, right? Is it trust in that I trust you'll do the right thing by me? I trust you with my data. I trust you know enough about me. I think that's part of the equation. And depending upon your brand and the market you're going after, that's something you have to ask of your organization. Generally speaking, I think there's a fair amount of trust among constituents, be small business, wealth, or retail customers and their financial institution, but they only know what they know. I think that, with COVID-19 coming on, with the advent of this digital first mindset that's occurring, I think that trust is being redefined. I think trust is determined now increasingly by relevancy. As a brand, are you relevant? Is data being used to get closer to the customer that you know? I'll give you an example. I get messages from my bank all the time. They suggest I take trust in them. Right after I sold a large investment, which is a company called Gizio, I got an email saying, "Hey, have I considered retirement yet?" Well, if they had looked at the money coming through, yeah, kind of, I'm now retired. I recently got another message from my bank suggesting that I put money in a 529 for my kids. One kid is 24, the other's 22. So, their 529s are done. They're spent. So where were they 18 years ago or 20 years ago when they were young, right? So in my mind, I don't really necessarily trust my bank as an entity that knows me and knows what I want. They constantly are providing irrelevant content to me that does nothing to really bring me closer. I view my financial institution as really a utility, not unlike, a utility company. The only time I want to engage them is when they do something really stupid and they anger me. That's when I engage them. So the channel experience that I have today with my bank is predominantly digital. So as long as it's working digitally, and as long as I'm able to conduct the business I want to conduct, when, how, and where, I guess I trust them. But for me, I don't have high expectation. Now, when I think of my relationship with Raymond James, it's a little different. And I know we'll talk about that a little later. I do have more trust in them because they have the bulk of my, we'll call it wealth, and they're managing my assets. My bank doesn't manage my assets. They just give me a place to park my cash and a place to draw my checks from so I can pay some bills. And they process direct deposit, of course. But, so the Raymond James relationship is different. Now, so I have a different kind of trust in them. Their technology is pretty crappy, to be honest with you, right? But I don't engage them on a daily basis like I do with my bank. So my bank relationship, the trust is based on dependability and ability to function as a banking entity, as a utility. On the Raymond James side, it's more about how are they managing my money? Do I trust that they're giving me the right asset mix and that kind of thing? So there are a lot of variables. What is trust in the type of financial relationship or financial institution I'm with has a huge impact on that. I saw a study not too long ago from Refinitiv. And they said, and this is post-COVID recently, they said 39% of investors do not feel equipped with the data and content to make investment decisions. So again, it goes back to relevancy and content to drive trust. I would tell you that number's even higher as it pertains to financial wellness in the retail banking space. People have genuine concerns right now about their ability, to survive financially in this new world that we're kind of entering or we're emerging. So there's a lot to be considered there.
There is a lot there, and relevancy and content driving trust. Niall, I know that when you're looking at this from an institutional level, that there are other elements that drive trust, right? And you maybe want to share your thoughts on this topic as well.
Yeah, I think Brian actually touched on it. Brand is key. So there is a certain level where, the brand does come first, and who you're dealing with in the digital experience helps and augments that. But who they are and their track record is key, and there's still no getting away from that. I do think there's a blurred line where individuals who are getting a digital experience and they're starting to manage their own wealth themselves, who previously would maybe not considered using wealth managers, then it's actually digital experience. It's access to data, access to transparency, and it's personalized service. And Brian, you would have touched on that. Like that is key, influencing them. But at the institutional level, very much as trust is built on reputation, but it's also built on your ability to give you the products, to give you the service in a time frame that meets your business needs. And that's the key part. A lot of them are so hindered and so constrained by regulatory compliance and all those pieces you need to get through, that actually the ability to trust that they will get you the product you're after, that they will manage your products the way that you expect them to in a time frame. That's a big problem, because actually a lot of them are let down. A lot of those institutional customers are let down. They don't get the service in the time frame they expect. And now some of them are actually opening multiple accounts across multiple providers to see who's going to win the race. They're only going to pick one at the end, but they're going through the process and say who can win the race of giving me the service, of getting me onto your systems in the time frame that actually meets my need, because the opportunity is gone if they don't do it in the right time frame. So trust for them is actually speed, the ability to fulfill your promises. And digital experience is important to that, but digital experience kind of augments that, kind of supplements that.
Niall, I think you're right on the money, because I was reading a study from Cornerstone. A year ago, 4% of millennial or Gen Z actually considered their primary financial institution to be a digital bank. Fast forward to now it's 15%. Millennials a year ago was 4%. Now it's 15% considered digital to be their first, a challenger bank being their primary. Gen X a year ago, 4%. Now it's 11%. In boomers, we're actually seeing a change too. People like me, I'm a younger boomer. It was 1% a year ago considered a digital bank their primary FI. Now it's 3%. I mean, there's a change occurring, and you're right on the money. I think people are dabbling in these experiences to a certain extent, even those that are high net worth, as well as those that don't have a lot of money. And ultimately, they will pick their partner per se.
And I think it's happening naturally, as in, they wouldn't even see it as being wealth management. There's another service, whether it's challenger or not, that is a natural way of managing your money, and it's personalized. And it's like, yeah, I'll put a couple of hundred into that. I'll put a couple of. It's just kind of happening organically, rather than to engage with a wealth manager. It's just naturally that people are kind of expanding that space at a personal level.
Yeah, that is interesting. This whole, again, moving upstream and moving from individual into mass affluent into high net worth and then into institutional. There's just different tick boxes along the way and how you create trust. And it's interesting, Niall, to hear you say that even at the institutional level, you see institutions opening up different accounts with different providers to see who's going to do the best for them. Rory, I know that you're seeing a number of things in the context of small to medium-sized wealth managers in the US and Canada in terms of how they're building trust with customers and how customers are building trust with them. Do you want to maybe touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really just depends on, trust is contextual. So it really just depends on who you are, whether you're a, millennial or you're Gen X or you're a boomer. It really just depends on your level of trust. Okay. I think that the game changed after the financial crisis back in 2008, 2009. I think a lot of, the younger generation, they probably saw their fathers, uncles, mothers lose their jobs in the financial crisis, and they have this sort of natural distrust towards the financial system, but they trust technology, right? So I think that, like, if you're, a young 30 something, you're probably going to be drawn much more towards technology because you do everything on your phone, as opposed to going to a financial advisor, But if you're, 40 something or 50 something, you're probably more inclined to go towards, an individual to get that service. So it really depends. And there's an economic factor to it as well, that a lot of these robo-advisors, like in Canada, we've got, Wealthsimple, you have, Betterment, Wealthfront across the United States. They're offering these services at far cheaper rates. The charges for, asset management are as low as 0.05% for some of these robo-advisors. If you go to an individual, it's 2%. I mean, it's a huge jump up, right? So I think that, it just depends on how much you can afford. Obviously, if you're trying to buy a home, you're trying to fund your kids' education and somebody asks you for a 2% management fee on your money, that can be a tall order as opposed to going to like something that is more economical. So I think it really just depends on who you are, the context that you're in. But we are seeing still a lot of wealth managers, RIAs in the United States that are looking to become more efficient, more relevant, and more consolidated in terms of their offering. So you have this sort of a situation where advisors are trying to integrate all their systems. They're trying to bring together things like, eMoney and Schwab and create this 360-degree view so they can offer a more relevant conversation or have more relevant conversations with their customers. So that's somewhere in between where they're trying to get that efficiency internally. So I think it really just depends on who you are. So trust can have different meaning to different customers depending on who they are.
Absolutely.
Those
Absolutely.
are some things we're seeing.
I hear you. And, the whole idea of engaging with a financial services provider for the first time, what are they asking you to provide to them in terms of who you are, all of the information about you, all of that can be, somewhat friction filled. Sometimes it can actually help to build trust. But Corey, just kind of directing this at you, when you and I first talked about this, I was giving you the example of a provider here in Ireland who managed to get me completely onboarded on a Sunday into a brokerage account, which was, fully digital. And you made the comment, Corey, of this goes way beyond e-signatures, right? There's so much more to this whole digital engagement with a customer, whether it's again an individual or institutional, at the very first instance of your contact with them. And it's not just about, can we make all of these forms digitized, which is different than digitalized, but the whole process around identifying customers. Can you share some of your ideas on that?
Yeah. So first and foremost, this is a relationship business, right? So if you're not feeling it, whether it's a relationship with an app or a person or combination thereof, it's not going to happen. And just because they're a millennial doesn't necessarily mean that I just want to have a relationship with my phone and I don't ever expect any type of contact with an advisor ever. That is not true. What they want is seeing their parents. The only way I could get in contact with an advisor was like on the phone or going to see them. And that's not the relationship they want to have, but they still want to know that there's this advisor team of some kind, behind them where I still have this access, but I still want to spend the majority of my time through an app, through text. And when I really need you, I want to do like one of these, like a Zoom or an in-person meeting when it's necessary, when it's deemed necessary. So, that's what we're seeing in terms of, this omni-channel component where we just need to give more ways to interact with folks instead of just that singular way.
I think you're right on the money. I mean, it's that high tech, high touch stuff that, everyone's looking for kind of in a post-COVID kind of world. I mean, we're now conditioned that it's actually not too bad. My daughter, who's, soon to be 24, has got a relationship with Raymond James based on my recommendation, right? As a father. And, but she still, as a young millennial, still wants to have that personal engagement. She's got an IRA conversion call either today or maybe it was yesterday that is involving, physical contact, picking up the phone or doing a Zoom. I had a Zoom call last week just to do my annual financial checkup to see if I needed to, change my asset mix, and it's like second nature now. It's like, yeah, pop on a Zoom, we'll do it. The people that are really winning at this game understand that there's a ton of friction out there and there's a ton of, that fundamentally investing, managing your day-to-day finances is a chore, and fundamentally banking sucks, right? I mean, and the ones that are making it suck less are the ones that are going to make it win. To Pete's point, on a Sunday, being able to be onboarded for a brokerage, that you can't do that with, here in the States pretty easily. It's just not going to happen. It's going to be a robo-advisor that could probably do it, but it's not going to be a Raymond James or one of the traditional shops. So the ones that are reinventing the experience, they're the ones that are going to really win this.
Yeah, well, that one was, that was Interactive Brokers here, and that was paled in comparison to me opening up a pension account where my financial advisor, I had to go meet him at the parking lot of a closed pub between our two houses so that I could sign a small forest of documents on the hood of his car, on the bonnet of his car, as we say here in Ireland.
Sounds like an episode from The Sopranos.
Absolutely. No, it was like he pulled up one way and I was looking the other way, and he's like, do you have a gun? I'm like, no, I don't have a gun.
Something that needs to happen where a lot of these traditional wealth firms are being dragged into this self-service component because their huge fear, and you hear it all the time, is like, well, I don't want my clients to be able to withdraw money without me knowing. I don't want my clients to be able to see access, because all that does is create more questions and more headache for me. But people want to be involved. They want to be engaged in their finances, and they expect you to coach them and teach them along the way. And those make better clients, because all of a sudden you have just a much tighter bond with this relationship if you just like let go a little bit and give people like a little bit of autonomy and a lot of access, so they can, you know, be in a sense coached up. They want to learn and be engaged with you, which again makes everyone makes better decisions that way, because there's so much they're just much more educated in terms of why we're doing something, and there's no second guessing because they know now. So that's extremely important.
I'd agree with that. Like, based on my experience in the industry, that the best wealth advisors, wealth managers are the ones that are educating their clients the whole time on every aspect of their estate, basically, and they take the time to sit down and, you know, go through everything, and, you know, they're experts in their field, and I think that allows them to build deeper levels of trust and understanding as to where they want to go. And I think it's still very hard to do that, you know, with technology, to coach somebody through the, you know, ins and outs of your retirement using an app. You can have this investing on autopilot idea, but like nobody will tell you about how you should draw down your pension, the tax implications of it, how you should, you know, tie that in with your will. There's only aspects of the automation can actually take care of that. You know, the rest of it I think requires human intervention.
Yeah,
but I think there are a lot of these app-based wealth management solutions are making inroads in other areas, such as things like these roundup functions. I don't know if you've seen that with, you know, with Acorn in the US. You have it Wealthsimple in Canada as well. You buy something and it invests, like it rounds up, you know, 70 cents to $1, and then invests that into your RRSP or tax-free savings account, or one of the equivalent in the US. I think that's quite clever. We're seeing more of that. That's something that an advisor, an individual, can't do. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that, where this kind of wealth space is going to start to creep into all parts of our lives, where you'll get like tax back on certain things, and they'll donate money to charities, and they'll start kind of come up with clever ways to make their applications more sticky, more relevant. And those are the sorts of things that I guess the millennial generation really appreciates. So we're going to see.
Yeah, they're chipping away at it. I mean, there's this thing occurring in the retail banking side called the deposit displacement, and, you know, the Betterments of the world, some of the health savings accounts of the world, you know, slowly but surely are moving hundreds of billions of dollars, you know, from the retail banking ecosystem into these, you know, these neobanks and these fintechs. And now, you know, the Betterments of the world, who, you know, not too long ago rolled out a full-fledged checking account. Now you got Square. You know, Square is going to roll out a full-fledged retail banking product as well as a small business product. That's going to take real market share. And the kind of engagement that a millennial wants, or, you know, even the younger generation wants, are much different than, you know, what the old people like me want.
You know, you don't sell yourself short there, Brian. You're doing all right.
I'm still pretty digital. There's no
You're
doubt
doing all
about
right.
it. But I like that high tech, high touch. I like the idea of being able to talk to someone when I need to. I view my financial advisor as OnStar, right? So if I'm driving along and my car falls off the road, I know I can get help by pushing OnStar. If I'm going about investing, managing my money, I need help, I've got a button to push, and it's called Raymond James for me. And I think that the market wants that, and I think there's always going to be a place for it.
Absolutely. And I heard Angela Strange from A16Z say on a podcast the other day, where's the Google Maps of my money, right? How do I just get on, hit go, and boom, by the time I'm 65, I've kind of followed all the way through. Shifting gears a bit, guys. Niall, when you and I first met back in 2015, 2016, I think, in one of the older offices of Finsight, that was round about the time where I left my parting shot at BNP Paribas before I left there, and said, listen, guys, if we're thinking about building a new customer experience here, and this is for institutional investors, right? You got to be thinking about, back in 2014, 2015, the top consumer banking experience that people have, and how do we actually translate some of the high points of that over into the institutional side. And again, it's the whole front end of an experience, the lipstick on a pig type idea isn't everything. It's got to be digital all the way through. It's got to be digital from end to end. I think the institutional side of finance is a long, long way away from that. But what are some of the things that you're seeing when it comes to that, the key areas of the customer lifecycle, it's institutional level, perhaps at the wealth level, where your institutional customers of Finergo are making progress on the digital side?
Yeah, and some of it's basics. Like the biggest complaint we get from relationship managers and wealth managers in the wealth space is to spend so much of their time doing administrative tasks. Like they're not actually doing the job that they want to do. So you're talking about, high touch, low touch. When somebody wants high touch relationships, that relationship manager is so working with disjointed systems, manual paper, but it's just freeing them up to do their job is one of the big things. And at the moment, the sentiment isn't positive. The people who get it right, and also the other part, like there's a level of people automate the digital experience for the client, but guess what? Unless your processes in the middle office and the back office actually work, they're connected, they work end to end, you're actually just exposing a really bad internal process to your customers. You got to get that part right. That's the bit that's talking about lipstick on a pig. That's the bit that people don't see. So when we think of giving that customer experience, that really good customer experience, you got to get your middle office right, because if you're initially offering something to the client, but actually you've got to go back and ask for manual papers, or you're asking for the same piece of data over and over again, or you are taking a really long time to respond, that middle office piece is key. So you've got to have that digitization end to end. You've got to really make sure that you're plugged into all your different systems, all your different customer repositories. You want to get that 360 view, but you got to hoover up that data across so many different parts of your financial institution to get that 360 view. Like another piece of feedback we'd hear from relationship managers is the customer knows more about their relationship with the financial institution institutionally than the relationship manager does. So, because the relationship manager doesn't actually have that 360 view. Or if you're talking to one part because you're looking for a product set, and then you talk to another part of financial institutions, you're looking for a slightly different product set, they don't know that you're talking to the different parts. They don't know what products you have. They don't know what would be complementary. The customer knows it, but actually you as a person, a relationship manager, doesn't know it on the other side. So it's really getting that steel thread from the customer to middle office, back office automated straight through as much as possible, while human intervention by exception, and giving that relationship manager, freeing them up to do their job and giving that 360 view. That's key. It's traditional system integration, it's traditional end-to-end automation, but that is the big thing that people are doing, and you can really superpower the customer experience off the back of it if you get that right. If not, you're giving a customer a digital experience, but you're actually just exposing them to all the inefficiencies, the internal inefficiencies, and that doesn't lead to a good experience.
You're making me think of something here, Niall, that banking as a service providers, right? Like Solaris out there, their pitch is, listen, take that customer file, put it at the center of the whole platform, and everything else feeds off that, whether it's lending products, whether it's investment products, savings products. And great, you can go get Solaris, others to do that. But thinking about a big institution that can't just go do that. These systems have been in place since the 70s. Can you do this around the edges, right? Without it being lipstick on a pig?
Yeah, you can wrap them. I mean, like they've got customer repositories everywhere, little siloed systems that have buckets of data of customer information and duplication of customer information. Like, not to cut product, that's what we would do. We would say, okay, that's absolutely fine. We will leverage them. There'll be repositories of data, buckets of data, but we will bring that into a centralized area and continue to let them live, but we'll keep them in sync. We'll give you that 360 view, and then we'll automate that process end to end, orchestrate across those systems. I mean, that's the big thing that kind of really leverages that and brings that together. So yeah, definitely. And separate, like the banking as a service is a separate topic, but that's key. I think making those investments and then potentially letting that technology be available for other institutions who haven't got it right. I mean, that's a pretty interesting space for people to get into.
Absolutely. And Corey, the whole customer life cycle is one thing, and being able to get that right. But I know, Corey, that you've got a background in AI and chat functions from a prior life. And how are you seeing some of the leading players integrate those tools into the overall customer experience, even at the institutional level or the individual level?
Yeah, it's more on the individual level. It's starting at the high volume. When you just think of like an online discount brokerage firm, millions and millions of accounts that are self-directed. So it's an easy place to start with chatbots and human chat functions, because what they're trying to accomplish is get rid of those phone calls. The most expensive service item that can happen. And reset my password phone call, what's my balance phone call, like simple things like that. It's a very expensive way to do that. So that's where AI and chatbots are really popping up. And we, even seeing them in retail. How do I find something? And if we can't have the AI function or bot answer it, where they're starting to drop to the human, but the human can do 2, 3, 4 chats at a time, which is far more efficient than obviously you can only do one phone call at a time. So it's a way to drive efficiency with volume. The next level is all about advisors interfacing into their back office. It's chatting in with the back office, which is a little bit more efficient, more modern than traditional emails. Again, phone calls are the most expensive thing you can do. It's the biggest time waster. Plus, you're hanging on maybe a queue when you could be doing something else. When you can chat in to get an answer and chat back out, and then that final frontier is that chat with advisor and client components, which there's a little bit more regulatory hurdles when we get into that. So that's not as simple as advisor to back office, but that's that next evolution in terms of how can I communicate and co-collaborate on a financial plan via Slack or something like that? That is something that we're thinking about, and something that's around the corner in reality. It's not that far away.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I've seen that with Symphony, that over the last few years, that where it's Symphony is kind of like Slack, but say from an investment banking perspective, where you got a relationship manager, you got a product manager, you got a legal person, and a message that comes in from the relationship manager, then AI reads that and drops that into kind of a term sheet that the product person would see and the legal person would see as well, right? And that type of AI-led, collaboration across an organization is really fascinating to me.
Yes, absolutely.
Pete, there's this thing occurring in the U.S. in retail banking. It's referred to as conversational banking. And in its AI-based interaction through ultimately moving from a bot to kind of a virtual assistant model, where you'll have contextual engagement with an AI-based virtual assistant that understands a little about you based on data sets, right? And it kind of goes back to what Niall was saying, starting with kind of data at the center, understanding the customer at the center, and then it provides you, insight and information that you can act upon. If it's not able to assist you, it puts you in a queue for that human engagement at that point, and that conversational or engagement banking kind of layer is something that's really needed in the banking industry. It's something that the cores here in the U.S. are talking about, whether it's fintech or a Fiserv or a Jack Henry, as well as BAS. That they're finally getting it, that data can drive conversation.
Absolutely. And Rory, how are you seeing that change with the changes in society over the last year with the C word, right? In this, how the customers of the firms that you're serving and that you're working with are perhaps taking hold of some of this automation or demanding some of this automation when it comes to, how they engage. What are you seeing?
Yeah, well, I think it's a blend of both automation and self-service, and still getting help from traditional advisors. I mean, that would be the sort of the key trend that we would see. I wouldn't say, based on the customers that we work with, and we work with customers across North America, the customers are not banging down the door looking for automation. They're looking for, human touch. A lot of people are going through very difficult times right now. Not everyone works in technology. A lot of people are working in traditional industries. They're trying to get a hold on their pensions and their mortgages, and apps can't solve that problem. They need human beings, they need experts, they need educators, probably at the end of a Zoom link or something like that, to be able to walk them through the process in terms of what they want to do. I'd say what we are seeing is something in between, where we're seeing a lot of process automation to allow things like client onboarding to be a little bit smoother, collation of documents to be a little bit easier. Things like digital signatures have really spiked. Everyone's using DocuSign now in some capacity to sign their documents. I would say those are the key trends that we're seeing. And then obviously having that deeper understanding of the profile of the customer, who they are, trying to pull together information from all sources into a single view of the customer. I mean, those are the things that are enabling advisors to deliver a more personal experience. Still in the United States, the vast majority of wealth still sits with the boomer generation, and those are the main customers right now. So And those are the people that are working with traditional advisors and RIAs, wealth managers. And it's the new generation coming through, the millennials are interacting with things like Betterment and Wealthsimple, et cetera, to manage their finances. So, yeah.
Gotcha. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. What I'd like to do next is just ask each one of you to kind of share what you see some of the leading players doing, whether this be an institutional provider of financial services or, a provider of financial services to individuals, right? Whether they're old school, new school, whatever, in just, pure fintech player even. Corey, starting with you, I know that you did have a case study around an institutional player that you thought had some leading ideas and leading execution here in the digital space.
Yes, it's a great story. So it's RBC Wealth in the U.S. They had an issue with keeping advisors and recruiting new ones, and they found out that really the technology platform was the main issue. That advisor experience was the reason why people were leaving, and they couldn't recruit advisors, which clearly would affect your growth goals, right? If you don't have advisors and you're losing them, we have a kind of a growth AUM issue. So they engaged us, and we helped turn that around. So they had about 26 different systems an advisor had to interact with to prepare for a client meeting. Greg Beltzer, who's in charge of technology, mentioned that an advisor actually sent him a picture of a stack of papers with just an unbelievable amount of sticky notes: sign here, sign here, sign here. So we can all imagine this unbelievable, just terrible client experience. How long something could take. It can take weeks to get an account open or to get something done, which we've all kind of heard stories about that. So we were able to, with MuleSoft's help, which is a kind of an integration type system, putting APIs and connecting all of this together. We talked about this full view of a customer and how can we do that. We were able to help turn that around in terms of they had their best recruiting year ever with this single pane Salesforce-led advisor desktop where the CRM becomes the center of the universe. And I know 15 years ago, I told you I was building custody platforms. That was not the case. It was that broker-dealer platform, like where I place trades, and that was like the center of the world. And that's evolved. And I think everyone's aware of that now because T3 study said that 56% of advisors said that CRM is the most important piece of technology. The next important piece is 26, which was financial planning. So it's by far and away, people understand that CRM is the center because this is a relationship business. And we were able to build this unbelievable advisor desktop, led by the financial services cloud and focusing on onboarding. And now they can open an account in 24 minutes, which is an unbelievable turnaround to get that ready to go. So you can think about all of the pieces that can fall out of that. I get assets in the door faster. I have less drop off, less clients that don't follow through just because of how long that would take. And the final piece is that their close rate went up by 46%, almost 50%, just because of creating a better process. We didn't create, there's not a new investment vehicle. Advisors didn't all of a sudden become better at closing. It's just the fact that now they can spend more time with their clients. It's less cumbersome. So you just remove some of these hurdles and you can just automatically run faster. It's kind of that simple. And that's a great case study we have about getting your systems together, getting out of the siloed mentality. We need to still have these systems in place, but we need to connect them and have them work in concert together so we understand everything about this client relationship and the advisor can spend more time with their clients, which at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to accomplish.
Gotcha. And I'm not surprised to hear that it's RBC. I mean, they were one of the center stories of that book, Flash Boys, about the systematic trading, right? And if they're going to be sinking how much money into what they built there, I'm not surprised that they're making this commitment. Brian, shifting over to you, what do you see as one of your favorites out there, the leading players and what they're doing to push the envelope when it comes to digital financial services?
I'll take the new guys on the block. I like what Betterment and Wealthfront are doing, and I'll tell you why. I mean, I think they look at the kind of the lifespan of their product and they base it on customer acquisition, the onboarding process, developing and management of my portfolio and his portfolio, the transactional execution, the reporting. I think that's a big one. The value-added services that they bring to the market, which are increasingly becoming differentiators. And then ultimately, and it's a little less important to me as an end user, but as a fintech guy, important, that would be probably regulatory compliance. On the customer acquisition side, I see Betterment and Wealthfront, really looking at AI analytics and increasing acquisition effectiveness. On the onboarding side, they're really using intelligent automation to streamline the process as best they possibly can, which again removes that friction from a customer point of view. On the management side of the portfolio, especially in the case of Betterment, I see, AI and the associated analytics kind of driving more enhanced offerings. And then, when I look at, the trades, it's kind of, again, intelligent automation, because of the way I have my account set up there, they reduce the transactional costs ultimately, which drives efficiency. And that gets passed on to, people like you and me. And then on the value-added services, I think there's a lot of things that they're going to be doing. They're going to be offering, retail banking and some additionally non-traditional bank offers as well. So, those are the two that kind of come to mind for me. Raymond James, I think, does a good job of that high-tech, high-touch. Their independent advisors leverage technology as the best they can to remove the friction and to support kind of the back-end operationalized aspect of their business, which allows them to focus on more quality time with their customers. I've experienced that. I think that's important as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I've looked at both Betterment and Wealthfront. One of my leading indicators of who is pushing the envelope out a bit is those that now offer crypto. And I'm not, and it's not always the exact right sign, or it's not always completely aligned with their digital strategy. But if they're able to do that, and I think either one of the two are doing that. I forget which one, but also SoFi now are enabling that, which is pretty interesting. So those are great examples. What do you think, Niall? What's your view? Pick out a leading player. Before you do that, we do have a question in the chat from Adam Wesley that I will come back to in a minute. Adam, just to let you know, I do see it. We'll respond on that. But Niall, what do you think?
Yeah, just kind of like a complementary points. People offering omni-channel is great, but you can start one channel, pick it up on another channel, go to another channel. And actually, just that streamlined view when you're interacting. It's not I started one channel and you abandon in that channel because you want to go to a different one. I mean that's interesting. The AI piece, blending, giving hyper personalized service through AI, because at the moment a lot of the digital experience and digital services actually aren't personalized. You're looking for a product, and actually it does take a human being to personalize it to you, a human being to come on board. And that's why people, Brian, you're talking about your daughter asking for a person to come in. It's probably because you do need that person to personalize it. People are using technology and AI to give you that personalized service is really interesting. There's a lot of clients we're working with who are doing that. And the ones who are doing it really right, what I find interesting is they're treating it as a product in a technology sense, and they are banking as a service. You would have said, Pete, but actually they're saying, okay, we need to do this. We're going to offer it to our end customers, but actually we're going to sell this as a product capability. We're going to be a platform company more than just a financial institution, and we're going to sell this to challenger banks, neobanks, other people in the industry. I mean, that's super ambitious from a bank, from a financial institution perspective, but it's the right mindset. I mean, that's the way you need to do it, and it's really interesting if they get it right. I mean, it's like an airline company saying they're a tech company. It's the same thing. It's those guys really trying to be a tech company and a product players.
Oh yeah, I hear you. And on that point of what can the banks do, right? I heard Ann Bowden speaking the other day on a podcast. She's CEO of Starling Bank, and she was alluding to the fact that they've built all this great technology. They've managed to bring on, close to 1 million customers. I think it's, 60-40 split between individuals and SMEs. And now that they have all that and it's working, might there be a way to start white labeling that to others? Right?
Exactly.
They've proven that they can do this, and they can do this at scale, and they can do it profitably, I think, is what their numbers will show this year. But I think that is super interesting to me to see that perhaps coming out of this whole massive shift. One of the players that is available in the UK that isn't available in the Republic of Ireland is Wealthsimple. And I think they're Canadian of origin, Rory, aren't they? I know that you're a fan of them, but would they be one that you would kind of point to, or are there others as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think Wealthsimple are doing a great job. I mean, they're certainly very innovative, and they offer like a range of different accounts, whether it's individual investment accounts, savings accounts. They also do crypto as well. And they have their investors, founders have a heritage in financial services as well. So they know the industry really well. So I think they're doing a really good job, and I think they're really appealing to the millennial generation. Certainly that's what the numbers are showing. And so those guys are, certainly are impressive. There's other lesser known wealth managers in Canada called, like, one of them would be Mocha, a similar thing where they're, doing a lot of this sort of alternative wealth management where they're, rounding up amounts that you're spending and giving you sort of cash back in different deals. I think they're doing a good job as well. But really, it still, for me anyway, remains a challenge for these sort of robo advisors to offer real meaningful advice to people who have complex financial situations. So whether it's pensions, refinancing your mortgage, there's only a certain amount of things these robos advisors can do right now without human intervention. So right. I think the future is going to be interesting.
Yep. And I, one of my favorites, and I will be a bit of a homer because I am an advisor to them, but just it's such an amazing team at Fund Admin Chain, or FAC. They're London-based. They're building a digital funds network, or they have built a digital funds network with some pretty big asset manager names that will be going live with regulated digital funds. And the whole approach with that was to get to the core, right? And what is the very, very core of an investment fund? Well, it's who owns that investment fund. It's the register. It's the transfer agency activity. And once you get that right, well, the investors' records, the distributors' records, the asset managers, the pension fund, everybody just becomes digital, and they're taking the right approach there. But just shifting over to that question from Adam Wesley, which is an excellent question. If financial wellness is the goal, right? Think about that for a minute. Financial wellness. Can we all just become better savers, right? Can we all become closer to our money where we are socking away that money each month beyond our 401ks or our pensions and investing it wisely? And even like one of my favorite things to do lately is bringing some true trading discipline into the crypto space. Anyway, if financial wellness is a true goal, right? It will require a full picture of an individual, like we've been saying, from deposit to lending and investment. What are your predictions around how that will come to market? Will it be open banking that might drive that? Wealth firms moving down market more into individual investing? Banks moving up market? Super apps like, what I know Walmart are trying to do, what Revolut are trying to become? Anyone want to jump in there with some thoughts around, how we get this full picture digitally across these different products?
This has been a challenge for decades in banking. I mean, when I got in banking in the 80s, financial institutions said, quote unquote, we want to be your financial partner for life. And, they were asking, in essence, back then through this thing called relationship banking, that they get your, all your relationship, be it the investment side, the lending side, or the retail side. I think the biggest hurdle is going to be regulatory. I think the other hurdle is that legacy financial institutions and legacy core providers don't have the technological wherewithal to make it happen. I even look at Citi. Citi doesn't have the ability to make it all happen because their technology is remarkably siloed. The data is not being shared. So the holistic view of the customer, be it retail, institutional, or wholesale, isn't really happening. Is it a utopian vision? Conceivably. I think it's something we should be striving towards. But then there's the whole regulatory issue as well, right? That separation between the insured versus the non-insured part of, financial management.
I gotcha. That makes sense.
Customers are willing to give up their data if they get something in return. That's, proven through surveys. So if it's going to be driven a lot by the customer, from a wealth standpoint, is the customer going to give access to socials to their advisor or to the wealth firm? Is the customer going to give access to all of their other, debts, credit cards, maybe banking assets to bring these things together for a better picture? And that's something we talk a lot about with kind of that 360 view, because then AI, next best action, can really go crazy in terms of when should I be calling someone and why? Should I be calling someone about changes in financial planning? We noticed through socials that, you've expanded your family, or you're now a family of 4. Now we need to talk about 529s, not 24 years later, right? So we're getting this information to be like, there's a life event happened, something major happened, and I can throw AI on top of that to alert me, what is my best thing I need to be doing today? So the advisor's spending the most appropriate amount of time in the right places, which means they can also handle more, which drives down cost, right? So we can scale. So I think it's going to be led by the individual customer giving access or allowing access.
Takes us back to the subject of trust.
It does.
Yeah. The open banking piece is key, but the funny part of that is there's so many intermediary layers think TrueLayer, Yapily, because it's not working. As in the banks are letting their data open via open APIs, and actually people are putting layers on top of it because it's not plug and play. You think it would be, but it's absolutely not plug and play the way it should be. So it's not really being executed the way it was intended.
Very good. Well, thank you, Adam, for the question. Appreciate that. But just kind of as a closing, guys, do you want to kind of give a quick 30-second view on if there's one thing that you wanted to see going digital in the financial services space this year or perhaps into next year? What would it be? Anything. Rory, how about we start with you?
Oh God, that's an interesting question. I think certainly in terms of something around pensions would be great. Being able to just figure out what you should be investing in, what portfolio you should be investing in, and trying to visualize what your future is going to look like. I think one of the big challenges that human beings have is seeing where they're going to be in the next 20 or 30 years, and what sort of lifestyle they're going to have, and what their context is going to be. And so I'd like to see something that enables human beings to kind of step into that future more and enable them to sort of predict what that future is going to be, because I think it's sort of an intangible thing for a lot of human beings. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges financial, wealth managers have, is kind of helping customers to step into their future selves. So that would be an interesting one.
Awesome. Niall, what do you think?
For me, it's when it comes to money, one size doesn't fit all. So hyper personalized, using your full financial situation, like we were talking. I mean, if we could crack that, that would be huge. That to me will be just getting to that panacea would be amazing.
I hear you. I want one of those floating ATMs on a drone that when I need cash for something to pay somebody who will only take cash, that it'll just drop in front of me.
That's great.
Or I'd love to see that happen. Brian, what do you think?
I would say you need to become a data-centric organization. Look at the data that's out there today. The data has been available through card transactions, bill payments, et cetera, for years. There are organizations out there that'll help you harness that data. Companies like Blip out of Philadelphia looks at bill pay data, turns it into actionable insights. That's the kind of behavior we need. And you can't move toward a 360 kind of viewpoint without aggregating that data.
So true. So true. Corey?
Yeah, I'll build on that. Maybe it'd be boring, but blocking and tackling, right? We got to combine these systems together so they can actually function and work, so we can analyze this data and run with it. It's far too siloed and too cumbersome today. So we need to be able to have all these things work together in concert. So boring answer, but it's blocking and tackling and very foundational.
I hear you. No, you're so right. And I'd love to be able to say everyone just start over, but you can't, because there's 8 billion people on this planet that all need financial services, and you can't just turn something off. We've got to keep building. We got to keep improving. But listen, we're going to close it there, folks. Thank you so much for joining today. Thank you to Rory. Thank you to Brian. Thank you, Niall Toomey, and thank you, Corey, for joining us today. This has been fascinating discussion, very insightful. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to just get in touch. You can get in touch with me, Pete at NorioVentures.com, and I will direct the questions and funnel them through. Everybody is on LinkedIn. Most folks are on Twitter. So you can get in touch with folks that way if you want to have further conversations with all of them, which I hope you do. So thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. That does it for this week, folks. Links to get in touch with Rory from Navirum, Brian from Movin', Corey from Salesforce, and Niall from Finergo are in the show notes on our website, moneyneversleeps.ie. So check us out online and subscribe to our Money Never Sleeps newsletter as well. A special thanks goes out to Peter Gorel at Art Envy for teeing up the recording for release on Money Never Sleeps. If you like what you heard, we would sincerely appreciate a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or whatever platform you're listening on, as it helps others to find the show. And remember, Money Never Sleeps is spelled as all one word. Also, thanks to Conan Brophy from Create Sound for his work on this episode. Conan is an excellent media man to get in touch with when you're thinking about launching your own podcast. As for me, I'm the founding partner at Norio Ventures, and I'm an early-stage startup advisor and investor helping fintech and digital asset startups get their product to market, build traction with customers, and raise funding. If you'd like to talk to me about your business, get in touch at pete@norioventures.com. Finally, till next time, thanks for listening. See ya!
Money never sleeps, pal.